taking a look at the Fairplex in Pomona. Normally, this is a huge parking lot, but twice a year, it is turned into one of the greatest drag racing facilities in the world. The cloudy and cool weather has done little to dampen the enthusiasm of this giant crowd here to watch the kickoff of the championship drag racing season. As always, it is at this fabled racetrack that the tone for an entire season of racing is set. And welcome to Pomona, California.
It's been a busy and long off-season with plenty of suspense, but welcome back, race fans. I am Andrew Morales, and today I am joined by Super Comp Dragster driver John Randell as we are here to preview the season opener of the 62nd Annual Lucas Oil NHRA Winternationals presented by Protect the Harvest. What's going on, John?
How's it going, Andrew? Thank you for having me on the show. I know it's been a minute since we tried to be on this video.
I know it's finally here, though. Season's here. There's plenty to talk about. 20 Nitro funny cars will be on the property looking to qualify for the 16-car field this coming weekend. John, let's start with Ron Capps, a guy who's been racing professionally since 1995, comes into this Winter Nationals as defending series champion and making his debut as a team owner. It'll be interesting to see what kind of performance him and that team can put together out in Pomona, but we just saw them run some stellar numbers out in Phoenix.
Yeah, with Ron Capps, especially they have brought back all their crew members with John Mellon and Dean Antonelli tuning that car. I think they're just going to come back from where they left off. I don't think they're going to skip a beat. I think they're actually going to be a team that is going to be a top 5 team for the whole year. I know looking at the preseason testing, their numbers are showing, and clicking it off early, I'm not going to say guaranteed, but this is going to be a team that is going to show true value maybe mid-season. Like, this could be another championship-winning team again.
But there is some big news coming for Ron Capps Motorsports after Gainesville. I'm not sure if that will hurt his performance by any means. I mean, after seeing him in testing, it's hard to think anything would hurt the performance of that car. But another guy, Matt Hagan, will also be making his debut with Tony Stewart Racing this weekend at the Winter Nationals. John, I believe Matt is fueled after losing that championship last year. Wants to start off great. Mind you, Hagan's a 3-time winner of the Winter Nationals. So I look for him and Dickie to have a great start Friday night and on.
Oh, yeah. Him and Dickie, they've been together for so many years that I've even lost count. And these guys are bad to the bone. They're badasses, and they've proven it. I don't think they're going to skip a beat. I think these guys are coming out and they're going to start swinging. Knowing how the Hulk is, he's definitely going to be a fighter. And especially when you're coming in with a new team, great. It's a new team owner, but you're still with the same team that you've been with for the last 2-3 years.
Right.
And I think these guys are just going to go out and they're not going to hold back. These guys are going to go after it.
Not only do you have the same team, you have the same car, you have the same body. So they made a lot of hits out in Phoenix. I think they'll be okay set up for Pomona. That leads us to our next guy, Cruz Pedregon. Pulls into the Winter Nationals with confidence, man. I would say, coming off a 2-win season with a new team, that has to give Cruz and those snap-on guys all the motivation they need. Last season, at the season opener in Gainesville, they made a semifinals appearance. So that was through the roof. I mean, it would have been great to win the race. But so, in my opinion, Cruz comes into this season as a heavy hitter, as good a car as he's ever had in his career.
Oh, yeah. Cruz is definitely going to go after it, especially finishing third in points. And he was in that championship talk and could have won the championship. John Collins has that car tuned to the bone. And even when John Collins was tuning for Tommy Johnson Jr., he knew how to handle that car, and that car was still a championship caliber team. So coming in for this year, I think these guys started off the year trying to figure out what was going on, to end the year about to win the championship. And I think these guys are going to still be in that same running. They ended 2021 great. I think these guys are just going to be better. And if John Collins can find that great tune-up, who knows? Maybe 2 wins right off the bat, maybe
Yeah.
4 wins, maybe a championship.
Yeah, John Collins is a quiet guy, quiet tuner, but he speaks big in performance in that department. And some of the biggest news, in my opinion, Toyota will be debuting their brand new GR Toyota Supra bodies with 2 of the most popular drivers, Alexis Ajoria and JR Todd, this weekend in Pomona. I have never been so excited for a couple of Toyota cars to be on track as I am right now. I mean, truly a game changer for the sport of drag racing.
Yeah, and I could tell you this with my dad, who's been around drag racing since the late 1960s. He absolutely loves the Toyota bodies. These Toyota bodies resemble what a Supra looks like, and that's the one
They
thing
do.
I think that's the one thing that fans lost interest of in Funny Car, possibly. I know I did, because the bodies all look the same. These Toyota bodies look like a Supra from the front end of it, and
Yeah.
it's truly amazing. And once you see the details of the car and you see how everything is, this car is going to do wonders. And looking at the preseason testing and seeing JR Todd go 386 at 334, this car is going to do wonders. I honestly do believe this car is going to be a top car in the season with JR Todd's crew and the Coletta team. With Todd Smith and Jim Oberhofer, these guys know what they're doing. My bad,
Yeah.
John Oberhofer. These guys are going to come out swinging like they always have. And with Alexis, with Dell and Nicky Bonifani, these guys are going to shoot for the moon again. I mean, they ended the season great, 6th in the points, but they ended in the final rounds. They had a couple of finals throughout the season. I think these guys are going to do great. I think Team Toyota is going to do great. I think they're going to be as competitive as Dodge, and it's going to be a great show this year.
Yeah, JR Todd actually, so far up to this point before the Winter Nationals, has tested that Toyota plenty of times. He had a test session in Palm Beach, I believe, in January. He had made many hits. He made many hits this weekend for the test session out in Arizona, and that's just to get data. Luckily for Alexis, she came off the trailer and ran consistently right off the bat, 91s, 93s. So I think they're pretty confident with their setup. She mentioned in a recent interview with her, they're going into the season with the same car they had last year and the end of 2020. And they just keep building on their performance. So at the Winter Nationals, I look for great weather and some good-looking bodies. And like you mentioned, those Toyota bodies are going to bring in a brand new audience of fans.
Yeah, especially what's great about the Toyota bodies is that they're more aerodynamic from what it looks like. And the way the front end creeps up and the way everything is built and the way the windshield wraps around, I think this car is probably going to be a straight contender, in my opinion. Yeah. I think Toyota did a great concept. I think JR and Alexis did a great design of it. And I think this car is going to be a great car for car enthusiasts to come out to the track and see this car. And I think this is where maybe Chevrolet comes out with a Corvette body for a funny car. Who knows?
Exactly. I've mentioned this before. It's going to make other manufacturers step their game up drastically. This is a big move from Toyota. I mean, to come on the NHRA side, they've been a part of NHRA drag racing since 2001, 2003. So they're really all in on this Toyota body, and it's the car of the future. I know Alice Mildinovich wants one. I'm pretty sure many Toyota body owners right now are just looking to get their hands on one. The next few guys we're going to get into that are entered for this week's race, Paul Lee and Tim Wilkerson. A couple of guys looking to get off to a strong start in Friday night's qualifying session as well. Paul Lee had an up-and-down season last year and even missed some events because of it. Wilkerson, on the other hand, had a great season, winning the U.S. Nationals and the Carolina Nationals. But both teams have the parts, pieces, and personnel. Do they have that winning combination for Sunday? Wilkerson, I think he can snatch up and grab one, but those are going to be a couple of guys to keep an eye on.
Yeah, well, coming from me, I always root for the underdog. So I love Paul Lee and I love Tim Wilkerson. To break everything down with Paul Lee being tuned by Jim Oberhofer, the other Oberhofer brother. I know Jim, and I know he'll make that tune up great. We all have our ups and down seasons. I mean, I know for me in Supercomp, I tune the car and I drive it. And if I drive great, that's awesome. But if I can't tune it, then I also blame me. So I get the Tim Wilkerson factor. But no, with Paul Lee, of course, they've had their ups and down seasons. And there were some races where he went to the second round, went to the semis, and I know that team can turn around. They've showed it before. They have the power. Maybe it's just too much power they put in where it just smokes the tires. I know some key factors is reaction times. There was a few reaction times where you can't leave the line starting with a 1. So it works with everybody. You have to practice as a driver on your reaction times, but also too when you find that right tune-up and you find that right setup, it's going to show. But with Paul Lee, I love Paul Lee. He's a great guy, great driver. He's been around racing for so many years. I think once he finds that tune-up, I think he'll be a top 10 car.
Now, this next guy won the Auto Club Finals last season, Bob Tasca, but still has that Justin Schaefer and Mike Neff firepower in the crew chief department. In my opinion, Tasca has to have a chip on his shoulder. Tasca was the only driver to win at the Auto Club Finals that wasn't crowned champion. So that has to hurt going into an offseason and give him a lot of fuel just to be better, to have a more consistent race car. He had one of the best cars in the first half of the season last year, so he knows what it takes to get off to a strong start at a season opener. So this weekend, I do put him as a top 5 car, in my opinion.
Oh, I can agree with that. And with John Schaefer and Mike Neff, these guys worked together when they were with John Force. And Mike Neff is a proven championship crew chief, especially in 2005 with Gary Selzy. And when he tuned John Force to his championship, this guy knows how to win. This guy knows how to win championships. I think they need to come in with that fuel of saying we don't give a shit attitude, and go in and start going in and start knocking heads. And Bob Tasca is a very great driver. So I'll bring up like 2005 with Gary Selzy. If they go in with that same mentality as we're going to go in and we're just going to rip your head off, I think Bob Tasca will be crowned champion at the end of the year. But it's just about how much are you willing to push it. They know where their limits are at, but it's how much you're going to push your limits. And they are going to be a top 5 car regardless. They are a very great team. And they proved it last year when they were sitting in number 1 for a few races.
Absolutely. And the rest of the funny car field, they'll be battling it out in Pomona. Jim Campbell returning to Jim Dunn Racing, Bobby Bodie driving the family-owned machine, Alex Miladinovich in the Hoffer Teachers Racing program. Jeff Deal will be out there, Tony Gerardo, Terry Haddock, Jason Rupert, Gary Densham, Chad Green, and Jeff Wren, a new name on the entry list. Those are a lot of California guys. Those are guys that are out here looking to make a name for themselves, looking for some more sponsorship money. Like we mentioned, John, there's 20 cars showing up to the field, showing up to qualify for this 16-car field, John. And so now that we've talked about the funny car category, who do you pick for Sunday to take it all?
Oh, that's going to be tough. Originally, I had my pick for Cruz Petragon, but seeing how the preseason testing's going and seeing all the speeds and seeing everybody, it's going to be tough because here's the thing. Pomona just grinded their track, so this is going to be a fast track. And grinding the track, this is going to throw every crew chief off. This is going to throw everybody's tune off. So even though I would say, I'm going to go with Jared Todd, but I don't think that's going to be it. And for me, when it comes down to Sunday, you know what? I'm going to stick with Cruiser. I'm going to stick with Cruz. I think John Collins can set it up. I think he's going to do great at it. And I think he's going to run it consistent, which wins races. And when it comes down to the finals, we'll say with Matt Hagan or Ron Capps or Robert Hite, that he's going to turn it up.
I'm not going to say my heart. My gut tells me to pick Robert Hite. I mean, heck, we're in Auto Club Raceway in Pomona. I think this is the biggest stage for Robert Hite, other than the U.S. Nationals. But Robert Hite has so much success here. He knows this racetrack. Coming off of a terrible season he had last year. It could have been better. I'm not going to say it was awful. He got a win and all, but just way short of what that team can do. And like I was saying, my gut's telling me Robert Hite, but it's hard to shine away from Cruz Pedregon. Like we mentioned, he had that great season last year. He was in the championship hunt. He has that same group of guys, much like the rest of these teams. Nothing against them. Everybody's coming in with pretty much the same personnel that they had last season. But I have to pick Cruz. When I don't pick him, he actually wins. So that's backfired on me a couple times. So I'm gonna have to go with the Cruiser for this year's Winter Nationals.
Now the thing is who's going to be the number one qualifier? Because that's going into Sunday.
Ron Capps. I'll say that right now. Ron Capps will be the number one qualifier, as he was for the Winter Nationals last year.
Okay.
That'd be a solid. That might be a safe bet for me. I'll take it. I'll cash out.
I'm gonna go with Jared Todd as number one qualifier.
Okay.
Only because since Alan Johnson is now over at Coletta's, he's probably looking at all operations, and not just strictly for Doug, but probably all of the Coletta cars. And
right,
knowing how Alan likes to tune up his cars, I think they're going to be number one qualifier.
Now let's dive into Top Fuel. This is going to be insane. There are plenty of competition this year, as you guys have all heard. It's no secret. Let's just take a look before we get into individuals. Let's take a look at this entry list here for Pomona. Steve Torrance, Brittany Force, Justin Ashley, Antron Brown, Sean Langdon, Doug Coletta, Clay Milliken, Josh Hart, Tony Schumacher, Austin Prock, Buddy Hull, James Maroney, Leah Pruitt, Doug Foley, Mike Salinas, Ron August Jr., and Scott Farley. I know this is a pre-race show, but one of those heavy hitters isn't going to make the top 10. That's more than 10 drivers I counted that have a serious shot this year and have a consistent car, even if they've been out of the car for a few years. So just looking at Top Fuel alone, even at the Winter Nationals, fans are going to get their money's worth.
Oh, yeah, and I think the Winter Nationals is going to be a great race, especially with a lot of new blood and a lot of new things happening with all the shakeups that happen over the off season. This is going to be the race that you fold the cards and you start going at it. I think this is going to be the season where everyone takes their gloves off and they're going to start swinging.
It has to be. I think we could see it in Pomona. I think there's going to be some games played on the starting line. I think there's going to be some somebody getting hung out. It doesn't hurt to see.
I'm not gonna say I hope, but I want to see those tensions rise again, like in 2009 with Tony and John and Cameron and Steve Torrance. I want to see those actions again. Granted, I get it, but I think that just shows the true value of a driver and when it shows the passion for these guys. And I mean, I've been on the other end of somebody burning me down, and there's been plenty of times where I spoke my mind, and there's been plenty of times where I've waited and just said screw it. And when you look up at the scoreboard and see the 00 light, I was pissed. So, but I do want to see that in some drivers. I kind of want to see that blood blow over, but I want to see that passion in the driver. I want to see somebody cut somebody out. I want to see that. I think that's what will bring the attraction. And now I don't want to see blow for blow, but I want to see people calling each other out, especially now with the shootout races. Especially you could call out drivers. I think that's going to show who's your friends and who's not your friends.
Right. That'll definitely, if anything, that will definitely cause a little bit of tension between drivers because you don't expect anybody to call your name out. Now you're forced to come Gainesville. But let's start off with Steve Torrance, man. Coming off his 4th straight championship. Could have been his 5th, but we're not going to talk about that. Steve Torrance had a great car in testing. Billy's not on this entry list, but that's okay. I'm sure we'll see him plenty times in the year. But all this news that's going around, Alan Johnson to Coletta, Justin Ashley and Antron Brown's alliance, I think Steve Torrance is just keeping quiet, laying low, and just says, watch what I have for you come this Winter Nationals and this season ahead. Because Steve, God, that guy's got a lot of fight in him. So I would not be surprised if Steve's in the winner's circle on Sunday.
I wouldn't be surprised either. Those Capco boys have it down. And like I said, it's all about consistency. And when you look at their record with him and Bobby Lagana and Richard Hogan, they have more win records than they do losing. And if these guys lose a first round, which is very rare, it's usually maybe a drop cylinder. But these guys are constantly a semifinal, final round car. They're probably going to be the first team to go 350s.
Right,
I
right,
can
exactly.
I can smell a 350 coming. Maybe at Pomona because that track is going to be smooth, the light cool breeze and that nice 70-degree weather at night. I can smell a 350 run from them. Um, these guys are not going to slow down.
You mentioned Steve could be that first to go 350s, but Brittany Force, she with David Grubnick, Max Savage, has a killer setup. Any cool weather conditions they hit. I think Brittany should have a good season. I expect her to have a good long haul, great battled out season. But the Winter Nationals, I think it's going to take her a little bit of time to get going coming off of this off season. She's not a veteran driver, so to speak. Nothing against her. She's a great driver, but I think she'll just have a little bit slower start.
She's a great driver regardless. She has a championship to prove it. And she's also the fastest top field driver in history if we're talking about
Yeah.
quarter mile and 1,000 feet. So she has everything to prove it. But the problem is that qualifying doesn't get you anywhere. Qualifying only gets you points and a qualifying number. Can you bring it to Sundays? Because there's been plenty of races last year that they had the fastest car, and all of a sudden go up in smoke on Sunday.
Right.
Granted, I understand that it is racing, anything can happen, but it seemed like it was a constant trend. So if they could find a way to slow down that clutch or speed it up, whatever issues they had in last year and they fixed the problem for this year, yes, this is going to be a team that is going to be as close as possible to Steve Torrance. But if they're going to have the same issues like they did last year, then it's going to be tough.
And the next couple guys, like I just mentioned, coming into this freshly off of a new alliance, Justin Ashley and Antron Brown. We're going to finally get to see that new canopy from John Force Racing on Antron Brown's machine this year. And Justin Ashley, let's talk about DC Motorsports. Bring some funding in for the start of the season. We know he's a young up-and-coming driver. He's got a couple of wins under his belt. But I'm going to be honest here. I've mentioned this to you. I've mentioned this to my good buddy, Dugenet Bland. Shout out to you, Dugenet Bland. I don't think this alliance will be anything special. If anything, I think they might share track data and they'll get to just compare runs. I don't think it's going to make that big a difference. I think Justin actually gained more from it bringing Toyota on board than, say, Antron did. So that's something he gets to carry, that Toyota banner. But if I'm looking at these two guys in Pomona, I think they have a lot of things to work out still. Looking at the future, at the season as a whole, I don't think Antron Brown and Justin Ashley will have any better of a year than they did last year. They both had a couple wins, both went rounds, but they just didn't stick out in that fashion. I think there's a lot that could be improved. Antron Brown, official first year as a team owner, that's going to be interesting. Although he's been through that process, he's been going through this process for the last year and a half now, so nothing new to him. But I expect a slow start, but to gradually pick up maybe.
Well, he did great in the finals at Pomona, and
right, he went to the finals, right?
And he had a win last year, and he's bringing over the same guys. Well, let me rephrase that. He's having this same crew that he's had pretty much his time at DSR. But no, Brian Crowdy and Mark Oswald, these guys have it together, and these guys know what the car will do. And they showed it. So do I think they're going to come off slow? No. I could maybe Pomona, they might be second round semifinals. If they could find it in qualifying, I think they could carry it over to Sunday. But with the Alliance, I do agree with that. I think it's just more sharing data, going back and forth. You also got to remember that when Antron Brown first started racing Top Fuel with David Powers, he also was with Mike Ashley when Mike Ashley owned the team. So
right.
I know that's been a thing for a while. But if for Antron, I think he's going to have a great year because he has the same team. And I think it's more seeing his videos, I think he's having more fun with it, and I think the team is involved in it more. So I think they're going to have a lot more fun than they've had in the past, which carries over to a lot when you're working on a car. With Justin Ashley and Davis Racing, I think if Jim Epler puts up a few more bucks for a full year, they might do great. They've had a great car, and especially with Tommy DeLargo coming out of the woodwork and being with Mike Green, I think they're going to be great. Tommy DeLargo is a great crew chief, and he was there with Matt Hagan to begin with, and he tuned a Lexus, and this guy even cruised, and he knows how to get a race car down the track. I know it's been a while since he tuned a top fuel car, but maybe it's all about shaking the rust off. And I think once Tommy shakes off the rust, he comes in. I think maybe mid-season just naturally will turn it up. But it's all about we'll see. It's way to see how Tommy and Mike Green communicate with each other and how they can get the car ready. So
let's dive into Coletta Motorsports now. Lots of moves in this last offseason. Jason McCullough, Alan Johnson, Brian Houston, all heading over to Coletta Motorsports this year. We know Sean Langdon is going to be heading into Pomona with Jason McCullough as a tuner and Alan Johnson right next door. Heck, under the same umbrella. So Doug Coletta, Sean Langdon have got to be extremely excited going into the Winter Nationals with those guys on the starting line calling the shots. Like I mentioned, Jason McCullough just came from Billy Torrance. That was a strong car. That is a very strong car. So I look for Doug Coletta and Sean Langdon. You mentioned Antron Brown, up there in the semis, but we could see Sean Langdon and Doug Coletta up there with Brittany Force and Steve come semifinal time.
No, but you're right. Since Sean has already drove for Alan Johnson during the Alan Abbey days and has a championship with them, he knows how Brian Houston and Jason McCullough tune.
Right. And
he knows how Jason is. He knows how Brian is. He knows how Alan is. So it's not going to be a shock to Sean. And I think I think for Sean, it might be benefit for him. And same thing with Doug. I know Jason's going to tune that car like his dad did. And I know Jason is not going to hold back. I would love to see him do an uppercut like his dad did back in the day. But that'd be one thing. But no, I think Jason's going to get after it. Looking at the preseason testing, it seems like they have a very consistent car right now. And I think Pomona, they're just going to turn it up a little bit more. A lot of these cars that I'm seeing, it might be just they're running consistent factors, and they might turn it up so they're not hurting parts a week after. But no, I think with Sean and Jason, it's going to be a great fit. I think Sean's going to have a great year with Doug and Brian Houston. I know Brian's a great tuner, no doubt about it. When he did with Dell and Larry and the whole Alan Abbey team, and especially he was part of Tony Schumacher's team the whole time, and that's the same thing with Jason. These guys know how to win, and these guys know how to win championships. And I think Connie made the right move bringing Alan to Coletta. It was just a matter of time when Alan was going to come over to Coletta. I know Doug is itching for that championship, and hopefully this is the year. I know all of us want to see him with the championship, and I know everyone wants to see Connie with another Top Fuel championship.
And everybody wants to see Doug with a title, a guy who's never won a Top Fuel world title in his career.
Winter Nationals is Doug's home field. That's his mecca. And who knows? Maybe that car, the first pass out the gate, might be a 359.
Right.
So it's going to be. I hope for the best for him. I know he didn't have a great outing last year. I know it wasn't the best that he's ever had, or it was probably one of the worst he's had. But I really hope this year they turn around, and I hope this year that they actually do great.
So next we have to talk about the return of Tony Schumacher. It's been a while since we've seen Tony Schumacher run the full tour, but he's going to be at Pomona. He's going to be making his debut with the Maynard family and Skag. That's going to be an awesome car. Tony, a veteran driver, steps in the same car Leah Pruitt was in last year. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Tony, like I mentioned, veteran driver, 8-time champion, 85 national event wins. Spectacular. I honestly put him up there with, at the end of the season, I think it'll be him, Steve, and Brittany. There's plenty of other guys. Look, I didn't even mention Doug. What's wrong with me? Doug's going to be up there too. But I think Schumacher out of the gate is going to be spectacular. even in Pomona.
That I could agree. And before I go into it, I know he's looking at new nicknames because we can't call him the Sarge anymore.
Right.
I still like the Tony the Tiger idea, though.
There's nothing wrong with Tony the Tiger. I'm all for it.
I know he doesn't like that. Or he thought it was funny, but we'll still call him Tony the Tiger. No, with Todd Okahara as a crew chief, Todd has been a tuner for so many years that I'm not going to say it's. Last year wasn't a great outing with him. I know last year with Leah's team, it just wasn't consistent. It seems like it was just they had one win and then it was a constant second round loss. And I'm not saying it's a tuner's fault,
Right.
but I think there was a lot more to it than what it was actually seen. I think this might be a great fit for Todd because Tony knows what he's doing behind the car. There's a reason why he has all these wins, why he's the best top fuel driver in NHRA history.
Right. And Todd
Um,
Okahara has been a part of Don Schumacher Racing for years now.
and I think these guys are going to come off strong, which I've been looking at the preseason testing, and they're running consistent like everyone else. So they're still up in the top of the field. But it's just going to be the matter of time when they're just going to set that limit of we're just going to go for it. And I think it's going to be a great beneficial for Todd because now he's with the driver that he's been on the seat for a while, but one time he did the part back in 2020 when he did the part-time spot, he won a race, which you can actually say that him and John Force and Joseph Pay are the only drivers that have won in a Winston, Powerade, Full Throttle, Mellow Yellow, and Camping World.
So let's talk about Leah Pruitt, who occupied that car last year. The other half of that brand new Tony Stewart Racing team that's debuting this weekend. She has Nick Strasberg, a guy you might have heard of, a guy who's been around, hasn't really been in the Alan Johnson spotlight, but he's been assistant to plenty of drivers. What can we expect from her? Me personally, I think she has a lot to prove. I think she'll be a top 5, 6, 7 qualifier, right around in that mix. But on race day, depending who she has in that other lane, could be the deciding factor on if she's able to go rounds.
No, that I agree, and I'm gonna go off of a take that there was an article when she drove for DSR, and where she needs to focus on driving and less on social media. I do agree with that. When you see her performance, and I'm not throwing any shade at her, she is a great driver. Coming from the nostalgia rankings and making her and going up the ranks, she is a great driver. Anybody who's got in Top Fuel, who's raced Top Fuel, you're a great driver in my opinion, because you've done something that a lot of people haven't done. But in my opinion, if she can stay off of social media and focus on racing, I think she could be a championship driver, in my opinion.
Wow. I'm going to call that John Randell's Deep Dives. That's what I'm going to call that. We're going to have segments like that all over everything Nitro for sure. But a guy we haven't talked about yet, Clay Milliken. Clay Milliken has, I believe, currently the track record for speed at Pomona. Him and Mike Glover have a great setup on that car. They haven't had a win together yet, dating back to the IHRA days, but that's coming without a doubt. So my prediction for Clay Milliken, I think, is a top 5 to 7 car as a whole. I mean, he's a veteran driver. He could do it all. He could drive about anything, I'm sure, but Top Fuel is his occupation. I expect Clay Milliken to have a good Pomona Winternationals.
That's his baby, and him. What I love about Clay Milliken is that he's that type of driver that interacts with fans. Even though he does all of his YouTube stuff, he knows his place of when it's time to go, and It's cool to see the behind the scenes. But him and Mike Kobler have that car down to the teeth. That car was a consistent bracket car, 372 car at almost every race. And when he had to come out of the car due to his ear infection and Austin Prock got in the car, and they went to it was the semifinals, right?
Right, semifinals.
Yeah. That car is fast. It's quick, and it's they made 2 final round appearances last year and against Steve Torrance, which was close, and same thing with Brittany Force, which was close.
Right.
So I think their win is going to happen this year. I think that's going to be it's going to be a great time. Mike Kobler is a great crew chief, especially when you look at the long history of the driver's seats tune. Especially one of them is one of my all-time favorites, Don Perdome, during the Skull Bandit days.
Yep.
So I think they're going to hit it off strong. I think they're going to be fine. I think that's going to be a top 5 car. I do think they're going to be fine. I think their win's going to come, especially with their clutch girl, Kaylin. I absolutely love her. What I can tell you is that I can guarantee you in the next few years, she will be a crew chief on a Top Fuel. I think she has that audacity to be a crew chief, and I think Mike Kobler sees it. And I really hope. I mean, if I ever get the chance to race in Top Fuel, I would love to have her as my crew chief. She is very knowledgeable. She is very hands-on. I think she would be a great crew chief. So I think Clay Milliken's team and Doug Strieger and all those guys, I think they are going to be fine. Especially they love their team, they love their crew, they love their employees, and that's what sets it off on who wants to be there. And I think they're going to be great, and especially having those 2 final rounds. Oh yeah, they're going to be great this year.
Yeah, they're momentum boosters, and what do? They give you confidence. And Clay Milliken doesn't lack confidence as it is, so that combination will be fun to see at Pomona. Another name that you mentioned, Austin Prock, back behind the wheel of his own Top Fuel dragster this year. Well, not his own, but under John Force Racing once again. I'm sure he wouldn't have it any other way. I'm sure there'll be more fuel in the tank for that guy stepping into this season as there was, say, his rookie year in 2020. This guy, you just mentioned it, man. He had a great performance in Clay Milliken's Top Fuel dragster back there in Norwalk. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see him back on the scene. We know he could drive. He's got asphalt experience, dirt track experience, Top Fuel experience. But I put him at the top of the list of young, next generation's Top Fuel drivers. This guy is a real deal, in my opinion. He's fun to watch. He interacts with his fans. He does great on social media. And I won't just say that, but he balances social media well. How about that? That's probably what you're talking about with Leah. But he handles the situations well. And I'm just a fan. So I look for Austin Prock. Hell of a car in Pomona. A fast car in Pomona.
It's tough because when he was, before COVID, he had Mike Green as his crew chief. And I think it's going to be tough because you had Ron Tobler who comes back out of retirement, but he hasn't tuned a Top Fuel dragster in so many years since Doug Coletta back in, I think, 05, 06 during that time. And then he went to Cruz Petricon and then found his love with Ron Capps. It's going to be totally different. I don't think they're going to come off strong because you have a crew chief. Don't get me wrong, Ron Tobler is an amazing crew chief, especially being with Shirley Modonley and Doug Coletta and Cruz and Ron Capps. I just don't think they're going to come off strong. I don't think Pomona is going to be a final round appearance. Maybe later in the season, I could see them being a top team, but it's going to be shaking off the ropes. This is going to be a brand new team, brand new crew. It's going to be shaking the rust off. And looking at the performance-wise, preseason testing, maybe they're just trying to find the balance and trying to find things. That's why they're Top Fuel crew, and I'm not. He can be a top driver, yes. I think it's going to be slowly progressed and not off the gate. And with the social media, it's great to see him like working on the car and doing all the other things and showing behind the scenes. And he knows how to manage it, which is great. Does a better job than I do. I kind of let mine slide on the side. But I think when that team comes up, I think they'll be fine later in the year. I just don't see him coming off hot in the beginning.
And the other side of those tuning duties, you mentioned Ron Tobler, Joe Barlam. So I don't think we're going to see that much of Ron. We do know he's going to be a track-only guy. He's not going to be at the shop at Indy. He's going to be back at his home. He will be at all the national events, though. So that's just a good extra pair of eyes to have. I'm glad we could agree to disagree about something, because you and I agree on a lot of things, but that we don't always agree on. But that's the fun of it. So let's talk about Josh Hart, a guy who won in his very first national event last year in Gainesville, comes into this Winter Nationals. He's got to be a fan favorite by now. I mean, he comes from experience and going into the second season, and he has a lot to prove coming out of the gate in Pomona, defending that season opener victory.
I think him and Ron Douglas have that car tuned, especially they're both owners of the car. I think these guys are just going to come off strong and not look back. So I wish Josh and Ron the best, and I really hope they can put a number one on the side of the car.
As do I. Josh is a young guy. I put him up there with Austin Prock. Those two are my favorite to watch. And you know what's funny, John? We haven't even talked about Mike Salinas. That's how many guys are in this top field category that it's just competition's through the roof.
So let's touch on Mike Salinas. So I love Mike Salinas. Mike Salinas is one of those drivers that I grew up watching before his car was black, well, before it was even painted. He had a nice, beautiful orange paint scheme on the side of the car. I thought that was an amazing dragster. And then he went off a few years. And then that was just to get his business up and going and make it better. And then he came back.
Right.
I think – so with Rob Flynn, I know Rob Flynn, and I talk to him every once in a while, and I think he's just going to be better. They might start off strong, who knows? But I just know that that's going to be a team that they're going to be up in the field with everybody else. They're going to be going at it, and I think Rob Flynn's loving his spot now. I think everyone needs a lot of that refresher, and everybody needs a change in their life. And right. I think this is going to be a perfect setup for not only Rob Flynn, but also to Mike Salinas.
Right. Rob Flynn and Mike Salinas probably right now going into Pomona are the most underrated duo in the top field category. Look at what happened to Rob last year. Let go midway through the season from Coletta Motorsports, and Mike Salinas losing Alan Johnson. So those two guys teaming up together have a lot to prove. I hope to see them get off to a quick start, but those two guys are going to be fun to watch. And like I said, they have to have a chip on their shoulder, without a doubt. And there will be 17 top field dragsters on the property looking to qualify for the 16-car field. One of them won't. That'll be interesting to see who that will be. But Buddy Hall, his very own top field dragster that he purchased from Tim Wilkerson Racing. James Maroney, it's going to be nice to see him back, Arizona guy. And Doug Foley. Those three guys, huge potential, huge upside. They don't run all the races. Doug Foley, I think, is a scary guy. He's going to be one to watch. And I haven't mentioned yet, I haven't seen Trip Tatum on the entry list, but I expect him to be there as well.
Well, also, too, you forgot about Ron August. And Ron August is a great guy. This guy has probably more experience than a lot of those drivers on this list, coming from alcohol funny car, and even he drove Nostalgia Top Fuel for Mike Fuller's Forever Young car. So this guy has all the experience in the world. And when I was racing Sonoma, he made his natural debut in Top Fuel at Sonoma, and it's a beautiful car. Him and his dad wanted to do this car, and they could be an underdog team. They're going to be a sleeper team. Once they pick it up, like in Sonoma, the car was running 380s, 390s, and that's a great run if Tony Schumacher or Steve Torrance drops one or two cylinders. They can fly right by him.
Right.
And I think they're a great team to qualify. Scott Varley, I don't really know a lot about him. I heard the name before. I don't know him. But I can't say the car's not bad. When Cameron Pierre drove the car, it qualified and it was consistent. Trip Tatum is another driver that if he's on that list, he will make headway. He will push through it, and I will say that I think he would, since he's another Capco car. I think which doesn't matter. Trip Tatum's a great driver, and I think Trip Tatum is going to be a top 5 qualifying car, and I could see him winning races this year.
Absolutely. Had that semifinals appearance back at Pomona Finals last year. So he's got a good car, good people helping him in his corner. That'll be fun to see. And to look at this top fuel field, I mean, who do you pick for Sunday? Who do you see coming out on top of the victory?
So I know a lot of people are going to say Steve Torrence because of the way the Capco boys are, and I'm not taking anything away from them. So in reality, it could be Steve Torrence, knowing that he has a great car, but I'm going to lean towards Coletta. I think Sean Langdon's going to take it. Sean Langdon loves Pomona. That's his home track. He's won there in every car he's raced. I wish I could say the same here in Las Vegas, but not Sean Langdon. But I'm going to say Sean Langdon. I think him and Jason McCullough are going to tune that car up, and I think that's going to be their bread and butter. And what I can say is it's going to be a Sean Langdon and Steve Torrence final round.
Well, my pick was going to be in that other lane then. If that's the case, I have to pick Steve Torrence. We saw what Steve did in 2020, sat out that Winter Nationals and came back in Arizona the very next race and won the race. So I think Steve, for me, is the guy. Him, Bobby Lagana, Richard Hogan. There's just so much experience on that side. All this news that's broken out over the offseason and the winter. I think it's gotten in everybody else's heads. Not that that's a bad thing, but everybody else is more worried about that heading into Pomona rather than who is the guy on top. Really, all season long, all off season, we haven't heard much of Steve Torrence, and I think he likes it that way. I think he wants us to hear him in Pomona in this season moving forward.
No, I could agree with that because, and people could say he's arrogant for it, which he's not, because I do the same thing. And I mean, some of the stuff that I'm doing with all my other projects and the stuff that I'm hoping to get involved in later on.
Yeah.
One thing I could say with Steve Torrence, I think the reason why people don't like them is because they constantly win. This is drag racing. We're not giving second place a high five or, hey, here's the achievement award. No, this is drag racing. I came here to win. I came here to beat you. They just found a combination that worked, and from parts that they bought from Jags, Summit, Clay Smith Cams, Crowler, like they're buying
and Alan
parts.
Johnson. Remember at the start of them having all this success, everybody was saying, oh, Alan Johnson's giving him things that nobody else has. Steve's paying all this money for parts that aren't even on the market yet. That wasn't the case. Steve earned this. If you go back and watch a story on Nitro Talk, a previous episode, I mean, Steve's been through the ringer. This guy is an American dream. Everything he's gone through in his life, how can you not show a little bit of confidence? How can you not be the way Steve is? Steve has earned everything in his career and in his life, and he's deserving of that. So I don't think it's fair that we rip that from him or anything like that. Hey, we all make mistakes. John and I were mentioning we'd like to see the gloves come off this season. Heck, if it's from Steve again, I'm sure the fans wouldn't like it, or maybe some would. But that's where the line in the sand is drawn. I hope Steve continues on this streak, and we have to appreciate greatness at the moment because it's not here forever. At the 2020 season, when all this pandemic stuff was happening, remember all those articles that were coming out, next year there's going to be 12, 13 car fields. Yeah, we did see that. But people said, Top Fuel's dying, Nitro Racing, the NHRA, it's all coming to a standstill. There isn't going to be any individual teams, moving forward. Now look at it. Everybody's going off on their own. Everybody has something to say, and everybody is invested in NHRA drag racing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our 2022 Lucas Oil Winternationals preview here on Everything Nitro. I am Andrew Morales, and today I was joined with John Randell. It's not the last time you see John on the channel. John's going to be a regular here, so look forward to plenty of good stories and things to come from John in the future. But thank you, race fans. We'll see you at Pomona. See you on the next one.